Hello and welcome to an exclusive interview with me, Alex Belfield, talking to a broadcasting legend. How are you, Johnnie Walker?
I'm very well indeed, thank you. How are you?
I'm not bad, to be honest with you. I'm a bit flustered because, you see, the thing about radio is nobody knows what's going on around you. I've just had to rush here to get to you, fearing that you might have driven off in a tantrum. But you've stayed for me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I don't do tantrums. That was a long time ago, when I was a kid.
I think in radio today, there's just no room for it, is there?
Not really, no. I mean, sometimes you listen to talk radio and you hear a bit of a tantrum going on between the talk show host and the listener, which sometimes, I remember listening to quite a lot of talk radio in America, not being able to get out the car because there's this furious argument going on. And then you begin to realize this talk show host obviously guarantees his bosses one good argument an hour, that's what people tune in for. So he always winds somebody up.
It's interesting, your style, because I've listened to you for years. You're slick and you're concise and you're slinky. You're everything that you should really be on the radio. I haven't managed it yet.
Well, there are so many different styles of broadcasting, Kenny Everett, fantastic on the radio. So there are many different styles of broadcaster, really. And mine is just one, but I suppose I've been blessed with a voice that works well over radio. I've always tried to be myself as much as possible, to be a sort of honest broadcaster. Being calm, but also having a good time doing the show was what we were after back then.
I think the moments of genius on your programme come when there's that genuine laughter. You don't really hear that anymore, particularly with commercial radio. There isn't the room to even laugh, is there?
No, it's very different. Radio's changed a lot, and is changing a lot. And one wonders when the likes of me and Terry Wogan and Bob Harris, when we sort of passed on to the great radio station in the sky, how things will be. I have no idea. But it's fascinating how, certainly in America, you've got satellite radio, which is like the radio version of TV, huge numbers of channels. So suddenly you've got shows by, Bob Dylan, most famously, is doing a show. Howard Stern's now on satellite. It's a shame we don't have somebody like that here, because I would love to, I bought a car, it's a Prius, it's a hybrid car, a good car for the times, but I would love to have a digital radio to get digital channels. So I don't know what the technology is going to be in the future. And there's internet radio, of course. Lots of people are doing interesting things. And I like podcasts a lot. My iPod, really, I discovered when I was ill in hospital. And to have that much music in this tiny little gadget, and that was really got me through some boring days, was listening to music on the iPod. And now I listen to, a lot of podcasts. One of the things that my illness left me with is tinnitus, which isn't so troublesome during the day when there's noise all around you, but at night when you're sleeping and everything's very quiet, you're just aware of this tone in your ears. It just drives you bonkers sometimes. So most evenings I've got the old little earphones in, and either listening to radio or listening to some kind of podcast on the iPod. It sends me off to sleep.
All right, we're going to talk today about your life and your career and your illness and your battles through life. We'll start with your childhood. What were you like as a child? Did you want to be in show business? Because you're not really showbiz even now, are you? You seem to do this kind of on the periphery of show business, but on a massive forum.
Well, yeah, I've never really wanted to get to be the sort of show business celebrity thing. It's never really appealed to me, I like, perhaps I'm shy as well. I like my privacy. When I was a kid, I remember my mother saying to me when I was about 4 or 5, "Where did it all go wrong? You used to be such a nice little boy." And I don't know, what changed or I think I was always striving to be an individual. I was always striving to express myself in the way I wanted to express myself. And I was raised in a time, it's the tail end of rock and roll, the beginnings of Beatlemania. And so that was such an explosive time for music. You'd really have to be a strange person not to be involved in music in the early 60s. And so really, my life was dominated by music, and cars were my two big interests. I absolutely adored cars. I used to go and sit in the car in the garage and go on pretend journeys, changing the gears and things like that. And then my dad, who drove a car as part of his job as a rep, I used to go out with him some days on the school holidays, and it was a bench seat column gear change Vauxhall. And I said, "I'll change gear for you, Dad, if you like." And he didn't have to tell me. I just watched his feet. And he said, "Well, this is great. It's like having an automatic gearbox." And I remember on my 17th birthday, I had no idea he was going to do this. He came back from work and he said, right, put the old plates on the car, you're going to take me for a drive. I said, you're kidding. But I could just, I had driven so many imaginary miles, I could just do it for real, straight out onto the road. So driving was a big love, and as I grew up, I rebelled really against the school system and failed my GCSEs as they were then. And then I went into the motor trade. Then I became as a mechanic, then car salesman. And then I went at the weekends to Jim Russell's racing driver school in Snetterton in Norfolk, because that was my big ambitions, to be a racing driver. And in the evenings, I was doing discos as a DJ. They were just really starting to flourish in the mid-'60s. And then my garage boss gave me an ultimatum to decide between one job or the other. He said, you can't do both. He said, to be a salesman, you must be available in the evenings, at weekends. I'll give you 2 weeks to decide whether you're going to be a car salesman or a DJ. And I said, well, I don't need 2 weeks. I'll tell you now I'm going to be a DJ. And that was a Friday night. The next day, the Daily Mirror ran an article on a new pirate station. I did a gig in a pub between Stratford-upon-Avon and Birmingham, and a guy came up and said, why don't you apply for a job on that new pirate station? So on Monday, I rang the Mirror, found out a contact name and number, called them up at the Hilton Hotel, and they said, make a tape. So I made a tape, and I thought, well, if I post it, it's probably likely to end in the bin. I'm not working. I've got my days are mine. I'll get on the train and take it to him. So I did, knocked on the door, and within 15 minutes, I was hired. It was quite incredible the way it happened. It was just, I think, having the craziness or the inspired piece of intuition to walk out of that secure job, which my father very much wanted me to stick with. But within 2 days, I got a job as a pirate DJ, and I went from Radio England onto Radio Caroline, and that's where things really started to get good for me.
It's fascinating about your love for music, because the music industry loves you as well. I noticed when you recently given an award, Elton John gave it to you, and the people really cherish what you did for them in bringing them up and making them popular. That doesn't happen now, really, does it? There aren't any DJs who seem to be as inspirational as the likes of you or John Peel on the radio, because perhaps they don't have the opportunity to play music like you did.
Well, I don't think the music is not as important in people's lives as it was in the 60s and the 70s. You know, there are many other things now, computers, internet, and all of that stuff. And also, there's not the power that you had on Radio 1. There was, up to 12 million listeners. I mean, we would pick a record of the week, and you could almost guarantee the following week or the week after it would be straight in the charts. So there was an immense opportunity to influence people's music taste. And one of the things that led me to want to work on the radio, discos first, but it was hearing music that I loved and wanting to share it. Because if you share it with somebody, and you get together with friends and you say, hey, listen to this, I've got the new Beatles album or something like that, and it was great sharing it with them. And then you go to a disco and you put a record on, you see everybody dancing to it and having a good time. That gave me a great buzz. So I would spend every spare moment at home listening to all the new releases, and that was hard work, because sometimes there would be a lot of stuff that wasn't really very good, but just every now and then something would pop out, like a Lou Reed Walk on the Wild Side, and you think, God, this record is so different. This is so great. I can't wait to go in and play this, And the trouble with the system, the way it was at Radio 1 back then, was it would be anything up to 2 weeks before, if I went by the system, that I could play that record. It had to be listened to by all the producers. They had to decide whether it go on the playlist, and then if it did, then it would be on the following week's playlist. And I just couldn't understand why they would do that, why they would take away the sort of excitement and the spontaneity of and the urgency of finding something great. So that's really, I think, where sort of my reputation as a music DJ came from.
I think that's why I love it. The immediacy of radio is, if something happens, you can react to it straight away. The other mediums can't. TV and papers can't really do that.
That's why I've never really had any interest in getting involved in television. Now it is getting a bit freer now, because they do a lot more recording outside. I love that guy, the Survival guy. And the fact he can go with a minimum crew, like 2 guys, 1 sound, 1 with the small cameras, and create something and film something you wouldn't normally get. So, but radio still is the intimate medium, and the one where you can be very spontaneous.
All right, we'll be back next with Johnnie Walker, talking more about his life and career. We're going to play a piece of music. What is your favourite piece of music of all time?
I hate that question because you can ask me today and it'll be a different answer tomorrow. I mean, I do love Benny King's Stand By Me. I love John Lennon's version of it. Bridge Over Troubled Water means a lot to me by Simon and Garfunkel, because I played that when I announced that I had cancer. Or we could go with
No, just one.
Well, the other one that's really close to my heart, because I do love the sound of strings on a pop record. And when I was a school kid of 16, I worked in a factory in Birmingham to save money to buy a tape recorder. And that was the Shirelles' Will You Love Me Tomorrow?
Good song. We're back with our remaining moments with Johnnie Walker. Now, let's talk about your illness, because that was something that played out on the air. I think it was quite a shock for many people, and the papers picked up on it and the media picked up on it. Was that the point when you realised that you were loved?
It was a point when I realised I was very lucky. I just had the drama with the News of the World and the drugs problem, and I'd just come back from that and got back onto the Drive Time show. And before, I had a great 6 months. It was really going well. And then suddenly there was this interruption and I was off. Coming back, I thought I really had enough drama in my life, you know. I really would like things to sort of stay more on an even level now. And then I got the news that I had cancer, which was a bolt from the blue. And I thought, I'm going to have to say why I'm going to be taking chunks of time off for treatment. So I thought it's best really to be honest about it. And it was wonderful how people responded. And the letters and the emails, and people said, we're doing absent healing for you, and we're saying prayers. And I mean, you know, if you're going to get cancer, that was a very lucky way to have it, really. I just wished I could have bottled all that support and shared it amongst other people in the ward. You know, I made a lot of friends with people who weren't as lucky as I was, and they're not here and I am. So I'm very blessed, I think.
Has it changed you?
Yeah, it has changed me, yeah, most definitely. Hey, it's given me a greater empathy with people who are seriously ill and a greater understanding of it. I really learned about love from my wife, Tiggy. We had some amazing moments together when things didn't look too good, and there was such a closeness, and she gave me such support. And also, you know, I realized that the listeners, how even though they haven't met you, they can regard me as a friend, and I regard them as a friend. And which is why I'm going about a bit now to bookstores and doing signings and things for my book. And it's fantastic to meet people. And they'll come up to me and they say, Johnny, you know, this is like meeting a friend. I've been listening to you on and off for like 40 years or so. So it's been, it is amazing the relationship you can build up over radio. And I think going back to that versus TV again, the fact that everything is in the voice, that somehow, you know, you can fake sincerity on TV and get away with it, but you can't on radio. You'd think it would be the other way around. But people, they can tell a lot from a voice. People who know who you are can know when I'm a bit sad, or I'm tired, or I'm a bit stressed out, or you know, sometimes really, really, I feel do a rocking show, and then they'll email in and say, especially when I'm sitting in for Terry, what are you on this morning? You know, I want some of that. But it's about energy, really, isn't it? And when bands say they do a far better show, obviously, when the audience is with them and supporting them and cheering them along, same as a football team, you know, and you can feel it in a radio studio. You can feel if the show's going well and you pick the right song, you know. Sometimes the song, I take a lot of extra CDs in the studio with me, and I have the ability to call up CDs from a digital library. And sometimes the song titles just jump up. And I think, yeah, that's the one to play next, you know. Other days it's a struggle and the show seems to last a long time. So it's really funny. And radio is one of those things, it's an instant, it's a moment. You know, you finish your show and you think, wow, that was a show, but it's gone. It's out in the ether, you know. They might hear it in Mars in another 15 light years or something. It was weird like that. It just disappears. And so there's the old saying, you're only as good as your last radio show, really.
Or even your last link, I suppose.
Or even your last link.
Let's talk about those downtimes when you had the expose in the News of the World, and you write about it in the autobiography. I haven't got to the end of it yet. It's beautifully written, and I can tell it's you speaking it, which is, I think, a great sign of an autobiography. Is there any worse feeling than opening the newspapers and seeing your name on the front page and stuff about you that isn't necessarily positive?
Only one worse thing, and just going back to, you think it was me talking to you, I very much wanted to try and write it. I had a lot of insecure moments that didn't have the ability to write it myself, but I was offered help, ghostwriters, but I wanted it to be my voice, through the written word. When I got a call from the BBC saying it was about 6:00 on a Saturday evening, and they'd had advance word, I think, that I was on the front of the next day's News of the World. And they said, you need to get out of town. Have you got somewhere you can go? And I had a friend way out in the countryside, miles from anywhere, and I thought, well, I'll go there. And they had a fax machine, and they had a journalist friend who went out and bought the paper on a Saturday night and faxed it through. And photographs through a fax machine tend to come out black. And so all these sheets of paper coming out, they were mostly black. And it just felt so evil and so horrible. And then I went down to the local garage and bought a couple of copies of the newspapers, hiding my face. It really knocked me onto the floor, really, because although parts of it were true, other parts of it most definitely weren't. And I thought, this is so unfair, and I've got no way of fighting this. I've got no way of answering back. And I did think it was the end of my career. And the editorials made it very plain that what they wanted was the BBC to get rid of me for good. So I didn't think I was going to get back from that one.
How supportive were those around you?
Well, friends were incredibly supportive, too much so. I spent all of my energy reassuring my friends that I was okay, And in the end, I had to turn my phone off. It just got too much. But it was the listeners, again, who made the big difference. And I think Radio 2 were ready to get rid of me for good. But I think they were genuinely surprised how understanding that the audience were. And I hoped that most of the audience thought, well, I don't believe parts of this story. You can't believe all you read in the newspapers. Others said, I don't care what he does in his private life, we like his program. I just hoped that they didn't think I did some of the things alleged in my private life that were said. But that made a huge difference. So twice, really, Radio 2 listeners have bailed me out and saved me. I'm very grateful to them. I'll always will be grateful.
Johnnie, it's a fascinating book, and thank you for sparing the time to talk to me today, and good luck with the future. And thank you for being an inspiration. You really are.
Well, that's very kind of you. Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Johnnie Walker, and you can hear me talking exclusively to Alex Belfield about my life and career on your favourite local radio station. Hi, I'm Johnnie Walker, and you can hear me talking exclusively to Alex Belfield about my life and career on 96.2 Touch FM. I'll be talking about my life, career, and new autobiography. I'll also be playing some of my favourite songs. Hi, I'm Johnnie Walker, and you're listening to a man who's a huge personality, a broadcasting genius, and an entertainment legend. Wait a minute, this is for Terry Wogan, isn't it? Hi, I'm Johnnie Walker, and you're listening to a man who's been in radio since he was knee-high to a microphone. He's always dreamed of pushing up his knobs while slapping our cuts.